Hello, I have a Coke in my hand and I'm going to talk about something. That something being art style theft and kind of how I see it, like what I think about it, and if it's actually a thing. I think a lot of artists would agree that the short answer to the question, is art style theft a real thing, would be no, definitely not. And to be quite honest, this topic is rather overdone, and a lot of people have already kind of covered it and explained why it's not an actual thing. But I figured that today, on this glorious, wonderful evening, it's actually dark outside, that I would talk about it, give kind of my perspective on it. I'll go ahead and get it out of the way. This is the art in the background is going to be a speed paint that I did of a Draw This in Your Style challenge, and I thought it'd be rather fitting because it's kind of the Draw This in Your Style challenge really gives a new perspective on art styles and if they can be replicated or stolen per se. And it's kind of a good example of why no, it, you're literally taking someone else's art that they have allowed you to take and then drawing it in your style. Now, I don't think anybody, if you ever took one of someone's art pieces and just started, blatantly copying it, or taking their actual art and just tracing it. Tracing is going to be a whole nother video on its own. And same with copying. No one wants you to take their art and directly copy it, and that's why the Draw This in Your Style challenge is a very kind of a fun new thing. Not necessarily new. A lot of people have been doing it recently. It's kind of, I think it came out somewhere around November last year. It might have even been older than that. I'm not exactly sure when it came out, but I've done a couple of them, and I think it's just a good example as to how someone can take someone else's ideas and thoughts, such as a specific way that they draw the eyes on their character. As you can see, my style is kind of it's a very anime inspired style, very manga-ish, or not manga, just very I'd say Western anime, because I don't really watch a lot of anime anymore, but whenever I first started getting into drawing, it was because of anime, and that's basically where my roots come from. And that's where I learned to draw, and obviously I didn't just immediately start developing my style. It takes time to come up with something that is your own, or something that you would call your own, and you're not just tracing Dragon Ball Z screenshots off of your mom's screen, off of your mom's laptop screen anymore. You've actually taken from that style. My phone is going off for no reason. Cool, I'm gonna mute that real quick. Anyways, you can take things from someone's style, but you cannot, in fact, I'd say it's relatively impossible to legitimately steal someone's entire style, because no matter how hard you try and how long you're at it, you'll never be able to completely and totally replicate someone's entire style. The exact way that they draw eyes, the exact way that they draw noses or faces, face shapes in general, or even something as simple as how they draw the collarbones on their character. As you can see, mine is very, I wouldn't say sharp, because it's kind of a softer character in general, but very pronounced. In fact, it's not even done with just shading. I usually line the collarbones just to give them a little bit more of a pop. But and that's just something that I do personally in my style, which I probably learned from somebody else who did that in their style. And that kind of leads back to the point of, not everybody is so obsessed with finding their own style, and that's why it can hurt whenever you think that someone's legitimately ripping off your entire style of what you spent a long time learning how to make. And so I understand why people are upset that they might think that someone is, stealing the entire way that they draw, because it's a very personal thing. And while your art is your intellectual property, your art style is not, at least in the eyes of the law. You can't copyright a style because there's not even any proof that you would draw something the exact same way every single time that you draw. That's how people end up with like same face syndrome. In fact, it's more important that you draw something differently every time that you draw a piece, really. But I get why people would be upset if you see that someone is blatantly pulling pieces of your style. Like, let's say you draw eyes a very certain way, a very certain pupil shape. Let's use Lavender Town as an example. She uses expressive pupils to really show what the character's personality is like, but that doesn't negate someone else's ability to do the same thing. You can't call that art style theft just because they're using the exact same technique. They may draw it slightly differently. The thing is, with art styles in general, they're very personal, and people often see that someone's like taking, or finger quote, like taking their specific style, and it can feel like a personal attack whenever the person that's looking at it has barely ever even seen. My entire audio just cut out for absolutely no reason, so if there's a little gap there, that is why. But as I was saying, it feels like a personal attack whenever you see someone copying you, and it can be polarizing. Like, you see that you've worked so hard for something and you've created it over time, and it's taken you such a long time to get down the exact way that you draw eyes or draw noses or draw faces, whatever it is that you draw, the exact way that you draw furry paws. I don't care what you draw, but it feels personal whenever you're drawing something. And that's why art is an intellectual property which can't be stolen. So if someone traces your art or repost it, that's very different from if someone's trying to emulate your style. Now, the difference between copying and emulating is that if someone is taking your art piece, putting it into, a drawing program, then tracing it and recoloring it or reposting it, that is completely different than emulating. In fact, I think that emulating is one of the highest forms of flattery. If someone likes your art so much that they want to recreate what you've done, then that should be like, wow, you're doing something right. Like, people like what you're creating. But long story short, no, you can't steal an art style, because while you may feel like your art is being ripped off, it's really not legally, at least. And I don't really think that anybody actually thinks like this. And having said that, I really hope that you like this video, like the art behind it. If you do, then obviously this wasn't my original idea. It's a Draw This In Your Style. I'll be posting it on my Instagram probably tomorrow, which will be the day after I post this. And hopefully you'll tune back in for my next video, which is going to be about my personal experiences with SJWs and why I absolutely hate them and everything that they stand for. So tune back in for that, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.